Harelik produces books and podcasts in Driftwood, Texas, and is here today to give us an insider view of the world of publishing. So we're so excited for you to be here. Anyone that's popping on, joining us now, feel free to leave a comment for Tiffany. But right now, I like to just get right into the nitty gritty of the questions. So you've written the cookbooks, Trailer Food Diaries, allowing audiences to get a taste of different food cultures, whether this is in Texas, Ohio, or Oregon, and really experience this in their own kitchens, right? So where did the love of food come from, of cooking come from, and how did the relationship of grassroots cuisine, what does that really mean to you?
Okay, yeah, sure. I started my first cookbook after I had written a cookbook that was like a family heirloom that I wanted to pass down recipes from my grandmother and from my mom, and I wanted to be able to share those. So I had this huge, massive Word document, and you know, that's kind of how I started learning about publishing and learning about sharing traditions and passing down the stories behind the recipes. And so that's really where I got started. But then around 2009, I had a major event with C3 Presents. And so C3 is the company here in Austin that produces ACL Music Festival. They produce Lollapalooza Music Festival. And so I had a foot in the door over there, and we did an event called the Gypsy Picnic. And so we had 20 food trucks down at Auditorium Shores. We had awesome live music. I think Delta Spirit and Junior Brown, and we had just a big lineup and right on the river. And we didn't know if anybody was going to come or not, but we had 20,000 people show up the first time.
Oh my goodness.
So that kind of speaks to the volume of people that were interested in food trucks and kind of smaller mom and pop businesses at the time in my city. So the next year, I knew that I wanted to kind of take advantage of that audience, and I knew I didn't want to cook in a food truck because I saw how hard they worked, you know, and I know what
a lot of work.
Life is like. It's a lot of work, and you know, it's not a small investment either. So that's when I started just thinking, like, how can I be of service to this group, and I can at least share their stories. So we have people from every walks of life here in Austin. Every culture is represented. Every food group is represented. So I just started writing the stories. I'm going to get one of the books for you guys so you can see the cute little cover.
We would love to see it. I'm going to fix my spine.
So this was the first book I wrote. So
I love it.
Yay. It's Trailer Food Diaries.
What edition is that? Okay.
That's the Austin volume, and it's the first edition. Okay. But there are several other ones. Like this was the second Austin edition. So you see she has 2 little cupcakes in her hand. So cute. And I went on and I wrote like nine of those Trailer Food Diaries. I did Austin, I did Dallas and Houston, and I went to Portland and did a couple of editions out there. And then I had a girl call me from the airport, my friend Renee Castile-Cook, my now friend. But at the time, she just was a cold call. And she said, you know what? I picked up your book in the airport. I want to take Trailer Food Diaries to Ohio. Are you interested? And I was like, sure. You know? So we co-authored. We co-authored a couple of books together. She ended up writing the Trailer Food Diaries, the best of. And there's just, you know, it's just been a fun project, a fun way to kind of introduce myself into publishing. And after that, you know, I didn't want to be known as the food truck queen, which was kind of becoming a label here in Austin. And so it's not that was bad. That wasn't like my highest aim in my publishing career. So I thought I better branch out while I'm getting going here. And so towards that end, I wrote three other books about Texas. And let me see if I have a couple of those on the shelf. Yeah, the Big Bend cookbook was that's probably my best seller. And there's the Terlingua chili cookbook I did, and the Big Country cookbook. Here's the Terlingua cookbook. This one was based on a big chili festival we have here in Texas in the desert once a year. And so I did that one as a 50-year celebration for their 50 years of having the cook-off. And so
wow,
that's how I got started.
That's so awesome. Thank you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing that with
Yeah.
us. So if someone
Sure.
comes and approaches you and says, you know what, I have, a book in hand, I had it edited, or I'm ready to go, I'm ready for publishing, I'm looking for self-publishing. What is really the difference when it comes to self-publishing as well as going through a publisher? And really, what are the benefits of both and maybe the disadvantages of both?
Yes, totally. That is a really good question to get clear in your head as you're kind of walking through your options. And I do have an article up about this at spellboundpublishers.com. There's a couple of resources. This is a main one, and it's a really important one because you need to know what the pros and cons are of going with a traditional publisher versus self-publishing. So, when I'm writing like little niche cookbooks, I'm only going to sell to a certain audience, right? Austin might be a cool city and I might have more sales because of that. But generally speaking, if I'm writing to a niche audience, a big publisher doesn't really want to pick me up. They want something that has mass appeal. And so if you're talking about traditional publishing, you're talking about getting published with one of the big five. And to do that, you must have a literary agent. There's not a way around it. You don't get picked up directly. They won't look at your submissions. And so you have to develop a relationship with a literary agent. And this person is going to go to bat for you, right? They're going to take your manuscript and they're going to try to sell it to one of the big five. And so one of the big five is going to offer you, the author, 1% to 2% of royalties. Like you're going to get a very small percentage of the profit. Of your small percentage, your agent is going to take an industry standard 15%. So you're making a very, very small amount. The upside is your distribution is like none other. You're in all of the stores. Now that goes well if people buy books, but if people return books, then you're getting paid negatively, right, for that. So it's kind of a challenge. Again, with the traditional publishers, if you have, you want to look at your goals. If your goal is to be on the New York Times bestseller, you want to look at what books are currently in there. Usually thrillers are hitting that market. So if you know what I mean, so what kind of book are you writing? Are you writing nonfiction? Are you writing memoirs? Are you writing historical fiction? And then kind of line that up with your goals. So traditional publishing is great. I have some works that I would love to be traditionally published, but they're more fiction oriented and more thriller oriented. For people that are maybe own their own business, like I think a lot of ladies in your group are in, kind of the more boss ladies, then there's a huge advantage to going the other way, which is non-traditional publishing, which is either self-publishing. Some people call it vanity publishing. Some people call it imprint publishing. Okay, so you can be confused, but generally speaking, there's just two ways to get published. Either somebody's doing it for you at a traditional level, or you're paying someone to produce your book for you, or you're doing it yourself, which is something that I do coach people how to do. So the advantages of doing it yourself or working with a non-traditional boutique publisher like Spellbound or like one of my brands is that you've got somebody that can take your book all the way from manuscript, to book in your hand. And what we do with that process is we take the Word document, we take any images you have. Doing it yourself. I'm getting some feedback. Can you hear me still?
I can hear you now. Is it the microphone?
Okay. Yeah, I started hearing myself, and so sorry about that, guys. But if you're wanting to, hand it over to a boutique-style publisher, we take the manuscript, we register your work in your name, the copyright in your name.
Okay.
That's important. We register your work with the Library of Congress, and they give us a little number that we put on the inside of your book, and that means that any libraries in the world can accept and buy and use your book in their circulation. We also, what is the third piece? Oh, we purchase an ISBN, and so each of your works, whether it's paperback or hardback or ebook, all of them will have a unique ISBN, and that is published through, that's bought through a publishing company, and it's something that you can do yourself if you're doing it on your own. And then we're running the book through editing, so we're trying to take we'll do like an assessment, you know, what kind of editing does this book need? Is it polished? It's ready to go. You don't need to pay for any editing at all. Is it, you know, need a lot of macro editing? So at the higher level, is this something that, you know, that it's not flowing right and we need to break this down into a different rhythm? Or is it the micro editing where it's just copy editing and we're putting in periods and punctuation and making minimal suggestions? So the editing is kind of its own quote. While that's going on, we're building out your cover, which is really, to me, one of the most exciting parts, because it, you know, whether like it or not, it's really what sells the book. Like your beautiful cover and then some enticing back cover text is what's going to get people to open and look at your book. So building the cover out is really exciting. Once we've got the cover, we've got the design elements, the font, the color that we're going to use throughout the book. So we need a polished manuscript that's done editing. We need a polished cover that the author approves, and then we can start the layout of the interior. And that process alone, the layout of the interior, will take a couple of months to go back and forth, because we'll give you some samples, you know, and we're going back and forth until we get it where we all really, really like it. At that stage, we're not doing a lot of moving things around. Like, we're not taking out whole chapters or paragraphs. Like, we're done with that. So your manuscript needs to be what you want it to be when it's in the book. Once it's in layout, it is not the time to go back and redo. Basically, it'll cost you. And so you're paying to do it all over again. So we really want to make sure that our authors have super clean manuscripts when we are ready to go into the layout phase. And after that, you know, the book is born. We put it in the Ingram System. Ingram is the world's largest book distributor. That means that anybody with an Ingram account, which is everyone that sells books, can order your book directly from Ingram. You, the author, don't have to pay for printing anymore. This is a huge deal, because I used to have to order my books in the thousands. So being able to just the bookstores to order from Ingram directly is a huge shift in publishing in the last couple of years. We also put your book on Amazon Prime. We make it available in ebook and print book format. We make it available to Barnes & Nobles and a lot of the major retailers. Now, just because it's available doesn't mean that all of the Barnes & Nobles across the world are leaping forward to buy your book. You still have to make the effort. You know, it's still part of your business plan to be calling the stores and getting yourself in front of their audience and saying, hey, I'd like to bring 20 people to buy my book. Will you host me for an event? And that is a service that I do provide my authors, but it's something that you can also do yourself. I did it all myself when I was marketing my book. I called book people downtown Austin and said, hey, will you have me for an event? Here's what I'm doing. And I ended up being on their top 10 list. So, you know, the marketing discussion and publicity is a whole different beast. But that is basically stem to stern how you get your book through the publishing process.
I'm glad you mentioned that marketing piece, because there's definitely a difference between the self-marketing and doing it all yourself with the publishing, and then the marketing when it's done with a boutique or a larger company, right? So where have you seen the finances of both, like the income and the driven of that book, and the audience really taking it in more so when it is going through a publisher? Is it almost being taken so much more seriously than it is when you do self-publishing?
Well, I mean, yes and no. I think that the publishers are only looking for people that are already rock star marketers. They're not picking up some guy that you can't find online. You know, they're picking up people that are self-promoters. They're picking up people that have been on radio, that have TV presence, that have been featured on XYZ. You know, they're looking for people that can kind of fill the role of that glamorous author lifestyle. So regardless of if you're doing traditional or boutique publishing, you're still in the marketing game.
Got you.
Right.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
You really want to treat your book like its own business. You know, your book is its business. You have to have a sales strategy. You want to have a marketing strategy. It's not just over the second that you get it to the editors. It has its own product cycle. It has its own life cycle. It's going to do its very best in the first year, and sales are going to trickle after that. And that's just the way it goes. So you want to keep coming up with new, you know, second versions and maybe a journal, or there's some other thing coming out. So you're always popping, you're always coming up with your next thing, and people are interested in what you're doing.
What is the timeline with the strategy when coming up with that next thing? Like, let's say you just want to put a book out there and you don't really have any intention to do anything with a second edition. It was kind of a story that is perfectly put like that. What can you do other than a book to really promote something else to go with it?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what that thing is. So I've worked with children's authors who have then made their critter, their character, into a stuffed animal, and so they kind of kept the party rolling that way. With food books, it's easy because you can always host dinners or host cooking club parties, or that there's lots of easy tie-ins with food, right? With fiction, it's a little bit tougher. If you're a fiction writer, you probably want to get in the mindset that you're going to need a second book. I would suggest you're coming out with a book a year. You could do it. You could get away with a book every other year. For us to publish a book, at Spellbound, it takes us 2 to 3 months. That's a very short period of time. If you're working with any kind of traditional publisher, they're taking about 2 years to finish your book project. So like right now, we have space on our roster for 2 more books that for people that want to get their books out for this current holiday season. That's very unusual. Most of my colleagues, they've long been done with their holiday 2019 lists. So it just kind of depends on who you're working with and what the time frame is. But you as an author, you probably want to be churning out your book or articles from your book, or speaking events tied to it, or you know what I mean? You're going to want to put together a pretty extensive marketing plan.
Yeah. So what is the difference between the time? Why does it only take Spellbound 2 to 3 months and everyone else like a longer period of time?
Well, there's a lot of different factors that go into it, and there's for one, we're hiring individuals that have been on my team or that I've worked with over the last 10 years. So we have a really good relationship, and I'm able to say like, hey, can you squeeze this one in? We need this cover. I know exactly what I'm looking for. We're not going back and forth with a lot of language, and you know what I mean? Like, we've dialed it down, and we've got a good team, and so I can produce high quality stuff that I'm really proud of fairly quickly. Now, it's still going to take time because the author has to review everything, and they're like so sick of looking at it because they've like been living with the book forever. But it just takes time to go back and forth. For us, I'm just lucky to have an awesome team that's really tight.
Nice. That's awesome. And that's very rare, I'm assuming. You don't usually find someone like a team that's tight and can do a lot of turnaround so quickly because they're all together. You know what I mean? It's almost like they can feel in the process.
We're all independent too. So I work with people all over the world, and so we want the work, right? Like we like making book magic happen. So we enjoy what it means to someone to fulfill that life goal, to put their book in their hands, and like we want to do the work. For most of the bigger publishing companies, you're clocking hours at a job, you're getting paid a salary. Things are going haywire, like you're put in the middle of weird situations, and it's, I don't want to speak poorly about my colleagues, but it's just different when you're at a salaried position, and the expectations and the timeline is much different than when you're doing it because it's your passion project, it's your passion business.
Yeah. That makes sense. Now, what if what do people need to know when they're coming to you and they go, I'm ready, and they just have no experience when dealing with a publisher? What do you want people to really understand and grasp and have a deeper knowledge about when coming to you?
When they're coming to me with their work. So I think that mainly what we talked about was the manuscript really needs to be in its best possible state. Like, you don't want to bring somebody a manuscript that they're going to have to do a lot of work with, because that's an easy no. We've got other people that have their shit together that are ready to roll, knowing some comparative titles and having a general business strategy in your head, that's fine. Like, you might need to talk about it for an hour, and we'll go over that on a coaching call. I always do complimentary coaching calls for my new authors. But having an idea of what kind of size of book you're looking to produce is very helpful. You know, like I like to do 5.5 by 8.5 paperback, or 5 by 7 paperback, or 6 by 9 paperback. So if you've gone to the bookstore and you're like, I know what my comp titles look like. I know that they're mostly neon green, right? And I know that they're mostly this 200 pages, right? Then we've got kind of a conversation. But if you come and you're like, I hadn't thought about what size book I want to produce, or how many pages, or what the word count is, you know, knowing, like, you want to kind of stick with your genre. Your genre has an anticipated word count. So if you're writing a novel, it's like 90,000 words. If you're writing a cookbook, it's 40 to 60,000 words. And what you don't want to do is surprise the readers of that genre with something that is so different than what they're used to. Like, you don't want to come out with a 2 by 3 cookbook, right? Like, nobody wants that. They want a normal cookbook, you know? It's not the time to get creative and artsy with the size of your book. So having those kind of ideas in your head and are really helpful when you're starting out, because it just helps the conversation go a lot smoother.
That's really good advice, because I don't believe a lot of people think about it. They go, okay, I have my words, I looked through it, you know, I'm so excited, here you go. And it's like, well, wait, we need you to think about, let's, you know, what size is it? Is it soft, or is it a hardcover? Is it, you know, what is your font? What is your illustrations look like? And people kind of have a vast, you know, understanding, but it's not really that concrete knowledge. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. So can you bring us through the end of the publishing process and like your offerings itself? So you said you have some offerings for us today, which is, I'll let you say it, $500 off, right? Your services?
Yeah.
Can you take us through that and take us through maybe the understanding of how long, if someone's like ready, they have their book ready, how long is it going to take? You said around 2 to 3 months. Is that start to finish, or is like 2 to 3 months from, you know, starting the process today to book on shelf, or what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, so that's a good question to get clear about. So 2 to 3 months is when you hand me your manuscript and I give you a quote and you approve it. I'm going to send you a contract, and then the work begins. Okay, and so we're going to kind of loosely adhere to this timeline that we agreed to. We're going to bat it around for a couple of months. You know, there should always be the expectation that the author has a pretty quick turnaround when we give you something. You know, you want to respond within the day or two, but we're going back and forth, and that's all clear. So by the time we're done with final files, that's a couple months into it. Once we have final files, we're uploading them in the Ingram system. It's about a week or so, and then anybody can order the book. Like, I can order the book. So during that last little stretch, you want to start considering your pre-sales. So I'm putting a couple of books up on pre-sales this week, and I'm very excited about them. And one is about the magic of malas. So like mala beads, you know, that you wear as a necklace. We have an author, her name's Allison Sims, and she's a yoga instructor, and she's written this cute book about malas. Wow. I have another author, her name's Hope Mueller, and she's written about her lifestyle growing up in a commune in southern Indiana in the 70s, and how empowered she was from that experience. So these two ladies we're doing pre-sales with. One is, her pre-sales are only about a month. The other, we're doing pre-sales for a couple of months, and there's strategy behind that, because the longer that you're in pre-sales, all of those sales count on your launch date. And so why do you want a longer pre-sales period to count on your launch date? This is for an author who's going for like New York Times or Wall Street, or somebody that they want to be on a bigger list. So they want all of these pre-sales to accrue. Other authors that have maybe shorter time frames, they're looking at like, how can I get some money to fund the rest of my bill? And, you know, I mean, that's not the case with either of these authors. That was my case, so I'm speaking about me personally. Like, my first pre-sale I just did it because I needed $5,000 to foot a printing bill, because at the time we had to print our own books. So, you know, you get creative and you just sell some books. And, you know, so you're asking about the end process. You want to start considering your pre-sales time, what that means, how it's going to happen. Are you having other influencers market your pre-sale date, that type of thing. So that's kind of what you're looking for, the home stretch, and then your launch happens and you're going at it. during the last month or so, you might have hired me to set you up for book signings. You might have done them all yourself. You might have hired me to get you some publicity through various programs like the Amazon bestseller list. We've got hopes on the Amazon bestseller list today. We've already hit a couple of #1 hot new book categories, so I'm super excited for her.
Wow.
And our little team works. They work really hard. We've been texting all day. Yeah. We've got her in the right categories. It's going well, right? So, wow. Those are kind of the things that you're looking at as you're releasing your book. Now, some people want to release their book and they just want to do little parties throughout, like house parties, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. And some people want to do, a bigger splash and get in a bookstore. And either way, around your launch, you probably want to secure a little bit of media, whether it's through a Facebook Live like this, through a friend's podcast, through national media. You can get as adventurous and bold as you want, but you want to have those media ops lined up. And what the media usually don't care about is new girl came out with book, right? So you want to tie it either to a media event, like Tiffany's handing out s'mores at Book People downtown with the launch of her new book, right? You want to kind of give them some reason to come to your event other than just this chick is doing a reading. Unless you've got really, really, really compelling stuff, unless your stuff is maybe nonfiction and you're like, I'm teaching the 3 strategies on how to wand my hair, right? And then you've got an audience and you're speaking specific nonfiction language that helps people solve their problems. So I feel like I'm going all over the place, but
no, that's
those
great,
are the kind of things you think about.
Yeah, you're giving us good information. And then your offer at the end.
Yeah, so my offer is to anybody that wants to publish their book this year that I'm happy to reduce my cost by $500, which is really significant.
That's awesome.
And so it's something that our team has agreed to. You can publish with me a few different ways. So with Spellbound, I only take metaphysical books. So this is a very specific author I'm looking for. So this is like the Mala book, astrology and tarot and spirituality and mind, body, health and yoga and these type of things. That's specific to Spellbound. The offer is good for anyone though. So if you want to publish your book and it's not a Spellbound title, we can make your own imprint. So we could make Danielle Press, right? And we can get you your own Ingram account and we can put your book under that, and I will still honor that $500 off of all of those services.
Very cool.
So generally speaking, not kids' books. I mean, yes, I do kids' books, but not included in that price because illustrators cost, they're a significant expense. So excluding kids' books, you can look to invest between $3,000 and $5,000 to produce your book. You can expect to pay half of that up front because we have to get the contractors paid, give them a deposit for their work. And then we expect the other half to be paid when you approve the final files. So it's pretty standard and easy. I do have to look at the work to be able to give you a firm quote. But once we have that, I'll knock $500 off and of my personal services and my personal time. And, we can get your book published this year in time for the holidays. You can order as many books as you want. You can keep the profit, right? When you're ordering from you, you're keeping the profit. So that's cool. You're paying and receiving taxes, however you do that in your state. And then anytime a book order comes in from a bookstore or from Amazon, you're getting 100% of the royalties when it's on your imprint, when it's on Danielle Press, right? You're getting to keep all of that. So if you're publishing like through Spellbound, we offer a 40-60 split with royalties. The publisher keeps 60%. Again, that's pretty low in the grand scheme of things. It's very author friendly. We also allow authors out of their contract at any time. So if they're like, hey, I got a better deal, then we're like, great, that's awesome. We're rooting for you. Go for it. And we let you out. I have books that are stuck in the water from publishers that are done printing it, that won't print any more copies, that won't give me my rights or files back, that are just over. And there's nothing more frustrating than that. So I want to encourage people, whether you go with me or whether you've been inspired and you have other contacts, just be really, really careful with the contracts you sign and, have a publishing professional look over it with you and say, oh, wow, this is not going to work. You need to, be careful about this, or this is what this implies. So those are things, I guess, to keep in mind. You know,
what
outside of publishing, I offer.
No, finish up. I was going to ask, what do some people, you know, when it comes to the contracts, that you see that aren't right when it comes to those publishing contracts?
Oh, it's usually that. It's stuff like the copyright is in the publisher's name, so you don't own any of their content anymore. Or they have the ability to say when they're going to print and not. If they run out of books, if they want to be done with it, they can be done with it, and they still own the rights. So basically, it boils down to what's your exit strategy for your rights if your publisher is no longer working out for you.
Gotcha. You know? That's very good information. Thank you so much. And then I cut you off. What were you going to say?
Outside of publishing, I do offer marketing and publicity services. And so those include getting you on different podcasts and radio shows. It includes getting you, offering you kind of big name articles. Like I get a list in Publicity, I get a list of reporters that are seeking information. So I'll get like an alert, like, oh, the Huffington Post wants an article about, you know, business strategy. And I'll say, hey, Danielle, can you write this one? It's a short deadline, but you get your name in the Huffington Post, you know?
Awesome.
So there are a lot of great marketing and publicity things we can be talking about. The $500 was intended for the publishing process, but if you've already got a book out there and you want to talk about marketing, you know, I encourage you to give me a call. I schedule free publishing coaching calls that are half hour, and these are intended for people that are serious about publishing, hopefully with me, but I have no hurt feelings, you know, if it's just information to get you going in the right direction. We all need a helping hand sometimes. Awesome. And the best way to reach me is just through my email, which is Tiffany with a Y, Tiffany at spellboundpublishers.com.
Perfect. And then her website is also Tiffany. It's Tiffany at spellboundpublishers.com. Or no, sorry, tiffanyharelik.com is the website.
tiffanyharelik.com and spellboundpublishers.com.
Perfect. Yeah. And Spellbound.
So either one has lots of articles and lots of great resources for people that are just starting out. You know, the main thing that I want to encourage you guys with is that sometimes it's like, well, do I really need to write a book? That topic has already been done. You know, do we really need more cookbooks on the market? No, we don't. The reason that I wanted to write a book is because it's part of my dream and part of what I want to do in my voice, you know? So I would encourage you, if you have a topic that maybe feels popular or overdone, just remember that you haven't written the book on it. Like, your unique voice matters, and what you have to say resonates with certain people. So don't let that stop you from writing your book and coming out with a copy that you're really, really proud of. So I hope that's encouraging to you, you know, in terms of, like, I get asked a lot about writing schedules and writing times. You know, some people it works well if you schedule the time like 9 to 11 is my writing time. What it does is it programs your brain to be receptive and be in writing mode during that time. So that can be very useful to people that are kind of struggling to get their manuscripts done. For me, I write like I clean my house. I got to start over here and go over here and do this little thing and tidy this up, and I'm all over the place when I'm writing. So you encourage that? Oh yeah, I mean, I encourage whatever is going to work for you. Like, if sometimes, I mean, I'll get a candle lit and I'll get the incense going, and I have to have complete silence for me, but maybe you've got some meditation music you want. The two or three best teachers on writing for me, Stephen King's book is called On Writing, and I think it's very, very good for new authors, regardless of whatever genre you're writing. Dan Brown's masterclass was incredibly helpful for me personally. The other thing you can do is just get involved with your local writing group or reading group. I have a writing group. We have about 6 ladies, and we meet and give each other feedback. And so that's something for accountability that'll really keep you going, you know, because you want to have somebody that's ready to review your work and, you know, kind of keep you accountable to your goals. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on. Man. Tiffany is also tagged to this video, and she'll also be on YouTube on the Keen Strategies page. So check her out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Tiffany, thank you so much for being here and just delivering so much great value. Welcome.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
You're
Have
so
a great
welcome.
day.